Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Before Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone universe, this HBO show was the best Western on TV. Director and writer Taylor Sheridan struck gold when he created his Yellowstone franchise. But before it existed, one HBO show was the best Western on TV, Deadwood. The Yellowstone universe is an impressive undertaking for television. And with even more upcoming Yellowstone spin-offs, there is a lot to love about what Sheridan is doing for the genre as a whole. The expansive universe has also found a sizable audience over the years, showing just how much potential Westerns still have. Thanks to Yellowstone and the rest of Sheridan's franchise, it feels like the popularity of Westerns, particularly on television, has really taken off. While Yellowstone, 1883, and 1923 are all been strong additions to the genre, there is another Western series that is arguably the best the category has ever seen. Over a decade before Sheridan began his acclaimed universe, HBO's Deadwood was a masterpiece from start to finish. HBO has often been the pinnacle of prestige television, with some of the best shows of all time coming from them, including The Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones, and more. Though it may not get the same recognition as some of the heavy hitters, Deadwood is an HBO classic in every way, running for 3 seasons from 2004 to 2006. Though Deadwood was canceled early, the series eventually received the follow-up film, Deadwood, the movie, in 2019, earning high critical acclaim in the process. Deadwood excelled with its gritty narrative set in South Dakota in the 1870s, with a formidable array of actors that included Timothy Olyphant, Ian McShane, Molly Parker, Jim Beaver, and a plethora of others. Deadwood is a perfect series for fans of the Western genre and is accessible enough to welcome in newcomers. These strengths give it quite a bit in common with Sheridan's Yellowstone and its follow-ups. It's also just one of the best HBO shows of all time. Prestige television is often at the forefront of changing the landscape of television, and Deadwood did just that for Westerns. The genre used to be dominant in the film industry, but it started losing its momentum in the late 60s into the 70s. In the 90s, however, films like Unforgiven led to a small resurgence of Westerns. And then, Deadwood brought the gritty, grounded approach to the genre to television, opening the door for numerous Western shows to thrive in the wake of its success. Shows like Godless, Wynonna Earp, Justified, and Yellowstone all have Deadwood to thank for paving the way and allowing a more serious approach to the genre. This is why it thrives on the small screen even today. While all these shows have been successful in their own right, Deadwood still stands above them as the best. It showed how viable the Western could be on television, even if its popularity in the film industry will never reach the heights of the past. While Yellowstone, and the entire universe that Taylor Sheridan has created, is a triumphant success, it might not have existed if Deadwood didn't set the standard for what to expect from modern Westerns on television. Though both shows are part of the Western genre, they are different in a lot of ways, as Yellowstone feels a bit more heightened in its conflicts than Deadwood, while still feeling gritty. Still, the success of Deadwood, and the artistic merit involved, showed that a series like Yellowstone could be possible. Sheridan has essentially perfected the TV shared universe at this point, but a show like Deadwood will always be held in high regard for what it did for the Western genre, not only on television, but as a whole. It's still one of the best Westerns of all time and an absolute must-watch for fans of the genre. Deadwood will likely forever remain the standard for modern Western TV. Before Yellowstone redefined the Western genre for a new generation with its gritty blend of family drama, cowboy lore, and power struggles in the modern West, another series wore the crown. Long before the Dutton family gripped millions of viewers, HBO's Deadwood stood tall as the gold standard of Western storytelling on television. With its poetic profanity, morally murky characters, and a town teetering between anarchy and civilization, Deadwood wasn't just a Western, it was a raw, Shakespearean epic in boots and dust. Premiering in 2004 and created by David Milch, Deadwood was more than just a period drama about an emerging South Dakota town. It was a meditation on how order arises from chaos, how greed and hope can occupy the same space, and how language, vulgar and poetic, can be a weapon as sharp as any Colt 45. The Wild West, reimagined. Set in the lawless mining camp of Deadwood in the late 1870s, the show pulled no punches in its portrayal of the American frontier. It was a place teeming with danger, ambition, violence, and reluctant community. Unlike traditional Westerns that often featured clear-cut heroes and villains, Deadwood thrived in the gray area. No one was purely good or evil. Everyone had an angle, a scar, a story. At the heart of the show was Al Swearingen, played with devilish brilliance by Ian McShane. As the ruthless owner of the Gem Saloon, Swearingen was both tyrant and town builder, manipulator, and occasional protector. He didn't shoot from the hip as much as he sliced through his enemies with his tongue, spewing Shakespearean soliloquies, laced with obscenities that somehow felt like poetry. In many ways, he was the anti-Dutton, less about preserving legacy and more about carving out power in a lawless swamp. Opposite him was Seth Bullock, played by Timothy Oliphant, a stoic former marshal trying to do the right thing in a world that rarely rewarded morality. Bullock was the emotional anchor of the show, frequently boiling over with rage, barely containing the fury of a man trying to hold back the tide of corruption and blood. Language like you've never heard. What truly set Deadwood apart was its writing. David Milch, known for his dense and layered scripts, transformed frontier slang into lyrical, almost Elizabethan prose. Characters didn't just speak, they performed. Every conversation was a duel, every insult an area. While Yellowstone excels at direct, sharp dialogue that cuts through modern dilemmas, Deadwood relished in the dramatic, the metaphorical, the profane as poetry. This linguistic style gave the show a unique texture that no Western before or since has quite replicated. Viewers weren't just watching a Western. They were eavesdropping on a theater of survival and self-invention. Grit without the gloss. While Yellowstone is steeped in contemporary politics and luxury ranch aesthetics, with sweeping shots of Montana's mountains and slow-motion horse rides, Deadwood was soaked in mud, blood, and grime. Its beauty was not in its vistas, but in its unvarnished authenticity. The saloons weren't shiny, the streets weren't clean, and the people didn't wear makeup. It was as close as TV has ever gotten to making the Old West feel as filthy and ferocious as it probably was. The show's commitment to realism extended to its characters. Many were based on real historical figures: Al Swearingen, Seth Bullock, Calamity Jane, Wild Bill Hickok. But Deadwood was never a docudrama. It was myth-making with dirt under its fingernails, a reimagining of history where legends were forged not through gunfights alone, but through resilience and desperation. Legacy and loss. Despite critical acclaim and a fiercely loyal fanbase, Deadwood was abruptly canceled after its third season in 2006. Its sudden end left major plot lines dangling and fans clamoring for closure. It wasn't until 2019, 13 years later, that HBO released Deadwood, the movie providing a bittersweet, fitting farewell to its beloved characters. In many ways, Deadwood paved the way for shows like Yellowstone. It proved that the Western wasn't dead, it just needed to evolve. Gone were the days of white hats and black hats. Instead, we got deeply flawed characters trying to survive in lawless environments. That blueprint, raw emotion, complex power dynamics, and a strong sense of place, is exactly what Taylor Sheridan would later tap into with his Dutton saga. Yellowstone, the inheritor, not the originator. Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone is undeniably a cultural force. It has reignited interest in the Western genre and expanded it into a full-fledged universe with prequels like 1883 and 1923. His stories are rooted in land, loyalty, and legacy, modern tales of the West told with cinematic scope and political bite. But Yellowstone's appeal rests in the foundation Deadwood helped build. Without Deadwood's daring storytelling, its rejection of idealized cowboys, and its embrace of complexity, there may never have been room on prestige TV for a show like Yellowstone. A tale of two westerns. Where Deadwood is lyrical chaos, Yellowstone is brooding power. Where Swearingen wields words like knives, John Dutton uses silence and stares. One is a frontier town clinging to civilization by a thread, the other a sprawling empire defending itself from modern threats. Both explore masculinity, justice, and power, but one does it in a historical pressure cooker, and the other on the wide-open range of the 21st century. Conclusion.